Okay, can I start?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tado Jayamudiraye Shrinvatam Sukata Krishna Punyashravana Kirtana Hridayantasto Bhadrani Vidunoti Suhritsatam Nashtaprayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatir Shloke Bhaktir Bhavadinashtiki. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 1, titled Genealogical Table of the Daughters of Manu, text 16 through 20. Text 16. Vidrau Vacha Atrergrihe Surashreshta Sthiti Utpatti Antahetavaha Kinchit Chikirshavo Jata Etad Akyahi Me Guru Vidrau Vacha Atre Grihe Surashreshta Sthiti Utpatti Antahetamaha Kinchit Chikirshavo Jhata Etad Akyahi Me Guru. Translation by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. After hearing this, Vidura inquired from Maitreya, "My dear master, how is it that the three deities Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva, who are the creator, maintainer and destroyer of the whole creation, became the offspring of the wife of Atri Muni?" Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The inquisitiveness of Vidura was quite fitting, for he understood that when the Super Soul, Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva all appeared through the person of Anusuya, the wife of Atri Muni, there must have been some great purpose. Otherwise, why should they have appeared in such a way? Text 17. Maitreya Vacha Brahmana Jyotitashrishta Atrir Brahma Vidambara Sah Patnya Yaya Vraksham Kuladrim Tapasi Stitaha. Translation. Maitreya said, when Lord Brahma ordered Atri Muni to create generations after marrying Anasuya, Atri Muni and his wife went to perform severe austerities in the valley of the mountain known as Riksha. Text 18. Tasmin prashunastamaka palasa pala sasoka kanane varbi shravadbher udguste nirvindyaya saman tataha. Translation. In the mountain valley flows a river named Nirvindya. On the bank of the river are many ashoka trees and other plants full of palasa flowers. And there is always the sweet sound of water flowing from a waterfall. The husband and wife reached the beautiful place, that beautiful place. Next 19. Pranayamena samyamya manovarsha satam muni atistad ekapadena nirdvandvo anilabhojanaha. Translation. There, the great sage concentrated his mind by the yogic breathing exercises, and thereby controlling all attachment, he remained standing on one leg only, eating nothing but air, and stood there on one leg for 100 years. Text 20. Sharanam tam prapadyeham ya eva jagat ishwarah prajam atma samam mahyam prayachattviti chintayam. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. He was thinking, may the Lord of the universe, of whom I have taken shelter, kindly be pleased to offer me a son exactly like him. Purport. It appears that the great sage Atri Muni had no specific idea of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Of course, he must have been conversant with the Vedic information that there is a Supreme Personality of Godhead who is the creator of the universe, from whom everything emanated, who maintains this created manifestation, and in whom the entire manifestation is conserved after dissolution. Yathova imani bhutani, Taittiriya Upanishad 3.1.1. The Vedic mantras give us information of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Atri Muni concentrated his mind upon that Supreme Personality of Godhead, even without knowing his name, just to beg from him a child exactly on his level. This kind of devotional service, in which knowledge of God's name is lacking, is also described in Bhagavad Gita, where the Lord says that four kinds of men with backgrounds of pious activities come to him asking for what they need. Atri Muni wanted a son exactly like the Lord, and therefore he is not supposed to have been a pure devotee, because he had a desire to be fulfilled, and that desire was material. Although he wanted a son exactly like the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this desire was material because he did not want the personality of Godhead himself, but only a child exactly like him. If he had desired the Supreme Personality of Godhead as his child, he would have been completely free of material desires because he would have wanted the Supreme Absolute Truth. But because he wanted a similar child, his desire was material. Thus, Atri Muni cannot be counted among the pure devotees. End of purport for today. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimade Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Virinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I humbly seek the blessings of all assembled Vaishnavas, and thank you for the opportunity to purify myself by reading and summarizing from Srimad Bhagavatam today. So I'll try to summarize today's verses based on Srila Prabhupada's purport and lecture I heard on this verse. And please forgive if I add my own interpretation to the summary. A very happy Ekadasi to everyone. We are very fortunate to be discussing Srimad Bhagavatam on this auspicious day of Ekadasi. So in this fourth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, we see the continuation of the description of creation. And specifically in this fourth canto, Srila Prabhupada says that there are 31 chapters, and all of these chapters describe the secondary creation of Brahma and the Manus. So the whole genealogical history is kind of described in these chapters in the fourth canto. And we see how Swayambhuva Munu had three daughters, namely Akuti, Devahuti, and Prasuti. And of these three daughters, one daughter, Devahuti, we have already heard about from the previous canto. And we saw how Devahuti married Kardama Muni, and then their son, Supreme Lord himself, Kapila Muni, was born, and then how he provided instructions on Sankhya philosophy to his mother, Devahuti. So this is very interesting that we are learning about the genealogical tree. In one sense, or in actuality, this is our actual family tree. I mean, sometimes, we are very inquisitive about our family tree, like who was my great-grandfather, and who was his father, and who was his father. So, what were they doing, and who were they married to, and etc. But if we really think about it, knowing about one's own material family tree is not as interesting. I mean, yeah, we might try to find out, or typically when there's a family get together, even in our families, that this has happened, that there's a family get together, then we talk about, who was grandfather, his grandfather, and we try to go as much as possible, trying to know who they were, what their names were. But at some point, it is not very interesting. I mean, how does it matter who our great-grandfather was? But then here, what we are seeing is actually the spiritual family tree of ours, like how did we come into existence, and who's our forefathers. And this is very interesting. I mean, the spiritual family tree is very interesting because we hear about great personalities like Kardama Muni, Kapila Muni, Swayambhuva Manu, Devahuti, etc., who were like great personalities, who were great devotees of the Supreme Lord, and how Supreme Lord, I mean, because they were great devotees, Supreme Lord gave his personal audience to them. So this is very, very interesting and very informative, very much needed information for us to know. That's why it's given in Srimad Bhagavatam. Otherwise, why would it be in Srimad Bhagavatam? So firstly, we see that the whole spiritual family tree of ours is being described, and it's very interesting to hear about our spiritual fathers and mothers. So then, in verse 16, we see how Vidura is inquiring submissively to Maitreya Muni about why, particularly, there were three sons begotten by Atri and Anasuya, Atri Muni and Anasuya. So here we see, I mean, we'll just look at three important lessons that come out of these 5 verses we read today. So the first important lesson that we hear, we get from this is that in verse 16, we see the attitude of inquiry, submissive inquiry by Vidra. So this is a kind of the constant theme in Srimad Bhagavatam, because it's teaching us that we need to be inquisitive for spiritual knowledge. Even in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that by asking questions or by inquiring about the Supreme Lord, or by even inquiring about one's own position and existence, then one's spiritual life starts. So the spiritual life starts by inquiry about one's position and one's relationship with the Supreme Lord, and by wondering who is the Supreme Lord and why are we here, and what is the relationship between us and the Supreme Lord, etc. So, I mean, it's very it's kind of common sense, because like in this material world, we don't want suffering, but we cannot stop it either. I mean, we want to be happy always, but is that happening? I mean, that is not happening. So that is kind of the first thing that one needs to realize, that although I want happiness, but I'm not getting it always. So there should be something, there should be a reason of why that is so. So that is kind of the first step in spirituality, that these miseries which are in place, firstly, to make us wonder, because if there is no misery, or if everything is smooth, then why would we even change? When the design of this material world is that there will be some miseries, so one can wonder, how do I overcome the misery? And then we think out of the box, we inquire, and then we kind of start our spiritual life. So that's kind of the first lesson that comes out, that we should be always inquisitive, especially mainly about the spiritual existence, and then why are we here, and then the relationship with the Supreme Lord. So how do we do that? So we do that by basically, again, reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, because there we see there are always questions and answers. I mean, the entire Bhagavad Gita is like questions by Arjuna and then answers by Krishna. And Srimad Bhagavatam also, there's always questions by great personalities and then answers by great personalities. So we also see from Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita that the inquirer is also very submissive. I mean, the attitude for inquiry is to learn and not to challenge. Here also we see Vidura saying, "My dear master." He doesn't say, he doesn't like demand an answer like for his question, but he says, "My dear master." So again, we have to be very submissive to a teacher, and we have to have a teacher to learn something. Just like in school, I mean, how do we even learn anything? I mean, do we need a teacher? So a teacher is typically neutral to all students, but if a particular student is very inquisitive, then they give special attention to those students. So similarly here, in general, in spirituality also, Krishna gives additional mercy to people who are very inquisitive to know about him, although he's kind of neutral to everyone in providing all the basic necessities and intelligence. And even last Sunday, as well as Bhakti Sundar Maharaj was saying that our natural constitutional position is to love Krishna, but just that it is covered. But when we start hearing about Krishna, inquiring about Krishna, then that dormant love will come back very quickly, because we are all part of Krishna. So that's kind of one first lesson that comes out. And then the next lesson that comes out is that we see in verse 20, we see Atri Muni. Prabhupada said that Atri Muni is not a pure devotee because he still has some material desires. So the question then we might get is like, how do we, I mean, we also in this material world have so many material desires. So how do we get rid of these material desires? And Prabhupada also mentions that 4 kinds of people, although pious, are not pure devotees, as described in Bhagavad Gita 7.16. So 4 kinds of people approach the Supreme Lord. One who are in distress, ones who are in need of wealth, ones who are in need of knowledge, and then ones who are inquisitive. So, and Prabhupada, and in that verse, we say that one who are inquisitive is like the most glorious. So, these four people are not pure devotees, but impure devotees because they're thinking of something, or they're asking for something in return for the bhakti process. But we know that the pure devotion service, anya abhilashidarshunyam yani karmadhi avnabhatam. So pure devotion service is without any expectation of return. No fruitive things that we expect in return for performing bhakti. And again, going back to the question, how do we practice this practically? Because we do have desires, and how do we get rid of the material desires? So Prabhupada gives some hope in the purport and in many other places that firstly, we can get rid of material desires by associating with pure devotees. Because when we associate, like we know the examples of Jagai, Madai, who were like the lowest of people, and they also got purified by simply the association of Nityananda Prabhu. So by associating with very pure devotees, one's material desires go away. And we also know Prabhupada changed so many hippies. And we have to also realize that we have desires, we have duties to perform in the material world. But somehow, if we can dovetail our desires, then we can be purified eventually. Some of us may have interest, a desire to sing. Some of us a desire to have a house. But if all those are for Krishna, for example, if one can sing for Krishna, if one can buy a house to maintain, or so one can have a good altar for Krishna, or have home programs for Krishna, then that is still Krishnaized, and that is not going to be treated as a material desire. So, and also there is one more instruction from Narada Muni on how to get rid of material desires. He says in first canto, 6th chapter, text 35, that one can get rid of the material desires by constantly chanting the holy name of the Lord. One can easily overcome everything by chanting and hearing about the glories of the Supreme Lord. So, like, also when we go on Harinam, we approach people to kind of chant the holy name, to hear the holy name, or to even buy some books. And typically we see that some people, they don't want to accept it, or they don't want to repeat the Maha Mantra when we ask them to do it, and they don't want the books. But the analogy that is given is that basically they are like children who don't want to accept bitter medicine, because children think everything is fine and then they don't want to accept the medicine. But only the parents will know that the child is in ignorance and he is suffering from some ailment, and that they need some medicine. So similarly, the people out there are constantly being disturbed by material energy, but they don't realize it and they don't want to accept it. And if we don't disturb them, I mean, we having this knowledge of Krishna consciousness, we have to try to distribute this to others. And if we don't disturb these people who are already disturbed, then the material energy is going to disturb them more. In the sense that we don't have to go out of our way to kind of approach these people and kind of disturb them from their normal duties and normal understanding, and then give them this higher knowledge. Because if we don't do that, then Maya is going to disturb them more. And also, personally, we have to prepare ourselves to go give this message to others. And we have to make sure our sadhana is strong. Because unless we have the conviction and we have the taste of the holy name or taste of Srila Prabhupada books, we cannot share this with others truly. So that's other lesson that comes out here, is that for getting over the material desires, firstly, we have to associate with pure devotees. And also, secondly, we have to make sure our sadhana is strong. And also, we share this with others. So when we see that others are benefiting from it, then our conviction also grows. And then our desires, our material desires will be overcome easily. So with that, I'd like to conclude today's summary, and just a reminder that like we saw, association of pure devotees and sharing chanting, hearing is very important to get over material desires. And we will be kind of doing that today in the whole auspicious day of Ekadasi. We will be going on Harinam today in Mill Avenue with His Holiness Bhakti Sundar Goswami Maharaj, who is such a pure devotee. And we'll try to distribute holy name and distribute some books today. So if you're available, please join us today at Mill Avenue at 6:15. And all the details have been posted on several of the WhatsApp groups. With that, I'd like to stop my summary and thank you everyone for giving me the opportunity. All right.